How in the world does Bitcoin mining help an energy grid? With the mystical green skull floating around, spewing all sorts of stuff out of its head and people making memes for days, I thought it was important to go over how Bitcoin mining actually helps an energy grid, and energy production for that matter at large. The first thing that we need to understand is that when people, engineers, build power plants, they are built to perform at as high capacity, maximum efficiency as possible. They don't want to build this multi-million-dollar infrastructure and just have it sitting there producing 5% of what it could do. No, they want it producing as close to 100% as possible so they're getting the maximum value out of it as they can. In this infographic that I spent over 9,000 hours making in MS Paint, you can see here we've got a power plant, featured in the middle, performing at 95% capacity. We've got 10 businesses, homes, whatever, representing a city, utilizing 9.5 of that total 95 percentage. 100% of that power is being utilized right now. That's good. Now, what happens when 3 of those businesses, homes, whatever, those utilizers of power, go offline? Maybe it was really cold out, wintertime, and all of a sudden a warm spell comes through so they don't need to use that heat anymore. So they shut off their heat, that power is no longer being utilized. Well, now that power plant has excess energy that it is sending into the grid. Too much excess energy sent into the grid will cause problems. I'm not an engineer myself, but I've talked to people that understand this stuff, and they said, long and short is, it's not good.
We have a situation in Canada where we have a nuclear reactor that at some times of the day, it has an excess. You don't change the base capacity of a nuclear reactor. That generator cannot power up and power down without causing a core meltdown. So it's producing the same amount of gigawatts at all times of day, but if there's no one taking those gigawatts, that power, it's like a shorting out of your fuse. So we have to find, and we don't have the transmission to transmit that power all over Canada.
So that's stranded energy.
It is, and in fact, we have to pay Americans, not sell the power cheaply. We pay Americans to take that power.
Greg explains it there perfectly. All of this energy with nowhere to go causes problems. Problems big enough that they're willing to pay people to take that energy rather than incur those problems. This is just yet one more thing that miners help prevent. They act as like a citywide surge protector. There is no such thing as a surge protector for the entirety of a city. There isn't just some sort of magical block that can be plugged into so that when too much energy comes into it, it absorbs that and no problems. No, there isn't anything like that. Except for miners. They can serve as a city-sized surge protector. Well, they can even go bigger than that if you get enough miners. Now, with those homes and businesses no longer needing the power, the miners can come online, serving as that aforementioned surge protector, take that energy, and do something useful with it. Imagine for a moment you're out in the woods and you find some sort of weird, mystical, magical rock that's got a socket that you can plug right into it. Turns out, this is an unlimited source of energy that will provide you enough power to fuel an entire city. What are you going to do with all of that energy? You could plug in your fridge, your AC, your heat, run it all at the same time, and your circuit breakers are still going to be blowing constantly. If this mystical magical rock is providing enough energy to power an entire city, there is no way that you by yourself can tap into that and fully realize it without causing problems on your end. So what are you gonna do? You could call your friends and it still isn't gonna be enough. So do you just leave this alone and walk off and forget it? No, of course not. You're gonna find some way to utilize that free energy. This is where miners come in. You would call as many as you could possibly get the contact information for. Tell them you're gonna charge them a couple of sats per wattage hour and they can run their machines until the cows come home. Enough people are eventually gonna hear about this. They're gonna say, hey, how about instead of the 5 or 2 or whatever sats that the miners are paying you, I'll pay you 10. Hey, that's a good deal. The miners will then move on to find some other place where they can find dirt, cheap, mystical, magical energy for nothing. And on it goes, with miners looking for the cheapest energy that they can find. This incentivizes the sprouting up of energy sources wherever they can be found.
Tom Campbell is the first Irish farmer to mine Bitcoin. He produces renewable energy on his farm using a special method called anaerobic digestion. Anaerobic digestion is a method where microorganisms break down biodegradable material to a point where it creates methane gas, which can be used to produce electricity in a purely renewable way. When grid demand is low, miners step in to scoop up the excess clean energy.
So when the price from the grid is very low, it makes more sense to mine Bitcoin. When it's very, very high, sell the electricity to the grid as renewable green electricity. You keep your coffers happy, and also the grid is happy that they're getting this green energy too.
Absolutely. That's it.
This brings me to the next point about how Bitcoin mining incentivizes the greenest energy possible. Imagine a city where every home had some solar panels on the roof, a wind turbine out in the yard, some way to harness the energy that the earth, the environment, the universe just gives us for free. While the sun was out and the wind was blowing, people could use that energy to do whatever it is they need to do. Run their computers, keep their food cold, power things, charge phones, whatever. In this imagined city, if everyone had an ASIC in their home, they could tap into that power anytime that they weren't using it for other things. Now, with every home generating or harnessing as much energy as they and their neighbors probably need during most of the time, the big boys, the hydro, the massive solar farms, nuclear power plants could sell their energy for cheap, even cheaper than they were before. An excess of energy is not a problem unless it has nowhere to go. An excess of anything, clean water, food, is not a problem unless it has nowhere to go. But there will always be hungry mouths, there will always be people that need clean water, and there will always be a humanity that needs as much energy as we can possibly get. One of the most incredible things about Bitcoin is that it actually generates life. That might sound like a crazy statement to make, but it's really not when you stop to think about it. Bitcoin mining incentivizes the search for cheap energy. Once that energy is found, communities can sprout up around that energy. Miners can come in to incentivize the creation of that hub, but then once people move into that hub, the miners can move on and sprout up new communities. You can think of miners sort of like farmers out across the world, spreading the seeds of life wherever they go. Bitcoin mining not only helps support a grid, it helps support everyone that is on that grid, even if they're not there yet.